Hi, it's Matt Kendall here again today. I'm just talking with Sarah. Sarah did the IEMT training a few months ago now. And we've just been going through her case studies, so we're just going to be certifying her today. Again, just like with a lot of interviews and stuff I do, I want to give people a really good sort of and realistic experience of what it's like to go through the training, and more importantly, what it's like using IEMT with real people and actually getting the results and stuff. So good afternoon, Sarah. I know you've got a bit of a cold today.
Yes.
So okay. Before we jump into this, could you just please give, because I know you've got quite an interesting, background with mental health. Can you just please give the viewers at home, just a bit about your background in terms of mental health and the work that you do?
I'm a qualified mental health nurse, and I've been qualified since 2006, where I did ward-based work, and I've worked in the community for quite some period of time now, but I did have a 5-year break in between because of children. So I've been back with the NHS for approximately 18 months now. So I've got quite an extensive history of working with individuals who have mental health issues.
Excellent. So you've never done any sort of private practice, if that's correct?
No.
So you've never done private practice, worked for the NHS mental health nurse. Okay. So you're a mental health nurse. How on earth did you hear about IEMT, and why did you want to come and learn it?
I think initially was on Facebook, Matt, and I think you were advertising, I think it was, can you change negative memories? I think that was the slogan that you used, and I was like, oh, I'd be quite interested in this. So I signed up and I did the webinar that you did, and was quite blown away with the fact that it's quite a quick technique. So then I think from that webinar, you kind of discussed the fact that you did training in the technique, that you'd usually do it over 2 days. And I think I signed up from that point because you just picked my interest, really, especially dealing with negative memories and emotions, which is something I deal with on a regular basis. Of
course, because, with IEMT, the reason why I lead with just basically I do the can you remove negative memories, or how to remove negative memories, because that's quite good, piques people's interest. But what I like is that just that is quite a small part of IEMT. It's just one bit of it. It's like 10% of the whole model. It's what's probably used the most, and until you get into it, and what's kind of known for the most. So mental health nurse, who obviously done a lot of training in mental health. Excuse me. You came to do my training, which is done all online as well. Excuse me, I'm going to cough again. Excellent. So, big question. How did you find the training in terms of the structure to everything, the course materials? Me as a trainer, I'm not fishing for compliments, but me as a trainer delivering it to it. And again, from your background as well, from a mental health background. So basically, what was the overall experience and the changes that you got and that you saw in the other people as well? So the whole weekend, what was it like for you?
The course itself is very well structured. You split it up very nicely into the kinesthetic stuff at on day 1 and the identity stuff in day 2. There's lots of opportunity to practice, which is fantastic, because not only do you practice, but you get to feel what it's like on the other side as a client. And even then, there was some mind-blowing sort of changes amongst the group when we were together. You get a chance to practice with various different people, because you broke us out into little breakout rooms to allow us to practice each kind of skill. The information that you provide afterwards is fantastic. There's the whole booklet that's set out as you train it. There was information on how to structure your sessions with clients, ideas for how you could break sessions up for certain memories, conditions, all sorts of things. It's intensive, I will say that. I had quite a banging headache after the first day, and had some extremely freaky dreams from some of the memory work, but was raring to go the second day. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. It's absolutely fantastic training, and would totally recommend it to anybody who's in the mental health field or anybody who isn't actually.
Well, that's what I sort of want to talk to you about, really, because obviously because I get a lot of like hypnotherapists and NLPers and stuff like that, and I really want to bring this into more mental health as well. I wouldn't say I'm qualified in mental health by any means. You know, I'm a hypnotherapist and an IEMT practitioner. I wouldn't say I'm a therapist or counselor in that sense. So we will talk about the case studies and stuff that you've done as well, but just from your experience working in the mental health fields, how could you see IEMT being used with your clients or in the NHS, or how do you think this is a beneficial model for people? I know you can't use it with your clients.
I can't use it, unfortunately, because it's not identified in NICE guidance, and unfortunately we are restricted by commissioning, so I can't use the IEMT movements themselves, which I find a little frustrating, because I think it would be very beneficial for individuals. We encounter lots of people who have trauma, so I think the PTSD model would be a good starting point with some individuals before then looking at possible CBT or other sort of mental health treatment. I do, however, use the 3 pillars, which is taught in the IEMT, and the clients who I have used that with have found it very beneficial and helps them understand their anxiety or their depression. And it means you can then, although I can't use the IEMT to work on those feelings that are identified, I can explore them in other ways with those individuals. I also use the PSACs, the changing of your posture and your body language, and how that can have an impact on how you're feeling in the moment. I do use that quite a lot, and the episodic stuff, I use that as well. You know, that happened then, but what have you done since? That's more positive. So although I can't use the IEMT as in the movements themselves, there is a lot that you can take from the IEMT training, and you can apply it to your practice within the NHS.
Within the NHS. And have you ever considered doing sort of private practice?
Yes, that's something I would like to consider. I would also like to do the advanced IEMT work. I think that would also help with my work within the NHS. But I do want to look at doing things from a private perspective, because I just think I would have bigger impact with some people.
And you'd obviously be able to use the IEMT within that
I would
setting.
be able to use the eye movements as well as the other bits and pieces that are within the training.
No, it must be frustrating to know, you've got that memory or that emotion, that's identity. But,
yes,
you're just going to have to do it in a different way.
Yes, I just have to be creative with what I can and can't use.
Now, obviously, with a lot of IEMT, it's content free. And it's not transactional analysis, it's not CBT, it's not counseling, it's not therapy. So how is that from a mental health perspective? What's it like using a content-free model?
Even with the 3 pillars, you don't necessarily need to have a lot of information to explain the 3 pillars and how they kind of intertwine together. You don't need someone to explain the situation necessarily, and I think some people appreciate that. I don't think focusing on an issue is really helpful. Actually, you're just allowing people to relive things over and over and over and over again,
re-traumatizing.
Exactly, and which is why it's such a shame that we can't use the IEMT movements, because we wouldn't have to ask them to open up in that particular way. We wouldn't need all the detail. The person would be able to retain a lot of that themselves. You just need a general idea of what it is we're working with.
So let me ask you, from a mental health nurse perspective, were you surprised on the effectiveness of the eye movements and the models overall?
Yes, because it's so you can see change almost. I mean, even when you're doing the eye movements, you can see change in people when you're doing the actual eye movements themselves. And because it's so quick, a lot of treatment, especially with the clients I deal with in secondary services, they're long drawn out 16, 20, sometimes longer sessions. And this could potentially reduce the amount of time that somebody's in services, which means long term you could reduce the waiting times that people have got trying to get treatment in the first place. So yeah, it's a shame that we can't get it in nice guidelines.
I know. Well, I'll have to get Andy to work on that.
Yeah, I know.
So you did the training, and then as part of the certification, you go work with a couple of people to do some case studies. I try to provide as much help as I can. You know, I've got obviously the groups, you've got like WhatsApp groups, then they've got the Facebook group, and I do a lot of lives. And also I'm on the phone quite a lot with people. I answer a lot of emails, all the things kind of going on. Because it's a lot of courses, you might not have this with your formal training, but when it comes to all sort of the self-development side of training, once you've done the course, you don't really hear from them again. Yeah.
You get your certificate.
They've had your money, and it's like, I'm very much involved with people after they sort of, well, after they do the course, and once they qualify, because for several reasons, but one of the reasons is that most of my clients that come to me to do the course are referred from people who've already done it, or who have had the therapy themselves in some way, and sort of or have been through my introductory course. And also, I'm just fascinated by the model, so I'm really interested to know how people are using it. So how did you find taking what you learned in the 2 days and actually using it with the people? What were the results like? What was it like doing? What was it like working with them? So yeah, what was the experience like of actually using IEMT on people who don't know anything about it?
The case studies themselves, coming from the background that I have, which is talking therapy through the NHS, this is not talking therapy. So I had to change how I sort of conduct myself, because I could sit all day and take notes about what the problem is. So part of it was about, right, you can't go in here and just ask them at loads of, that's not what this is about. The clients themselves, they're always blown away by the demonstration before you even start touching on what the issue is they would like to deal with. There's no kind of having to persuade them to engage in the process, because once you've done the demonstration, it's so much easier after that. And you're actually having to remind people, I don't need to know the content. I just want you to hold on to it, remember it, while we do the eye movements. So that bit as well was hard for me, because I'm usually trying to tease the information out, and I'm actually saying, I don't want to know. I want you to just keep a hold of that information. But the simple kinesthetic, the integrative, and then the identity stuff, they're all just completely blown away by some of the stuff that comes up for them, how far back it takes people. Both of my individuals went back to primary school or school years and were kind of blown away by that. They thought it was just that problem they were going to be sort of, and that was it. There wasn't going to be any sort of regressing back to past sort of bits and pieces. Both of the people who I did my case studies are both doing really well since we've done the IEMT work. And they're not as bothered by the initial issue that they kind of came to see me with. So it's nice to see that they're thriving, they're doing things that they want to do, that hopefully the IEMT has had a hand in helping them move forward.
Absolutely. And what I always say is that IEMT is not a solution to anything. It doesn't offer an outcome. It's an exploration of their situation, of what they're in, by going into their thoughts, feelings, memories, experiences, identities, and imprints. And we were talking earlier when we we're going through your case, these people are shocked when they go back towards these things.
The facial expressions are amazing.
This is like from 35 years ago. But the thing is, that's what's causing it. But when somebody finds, when we say the imprint, it's like the first time something happens, or the first time they can feel a certain way or be a certain way. just knowing what it is, knowing why you are the way you are is half the battle.
That's the thing. A lot of them have said, oh, that makes sense now.
Yes.
That's a line I get quite, oh, that makes sense now.
You literally see pennies dropping in the head.
Yeah,
you
do, yeah. Oh, that makes sense. That's a line I get quite frequently. And oh, I can see that now. That's another one. Because they can see how all these things are. Initially, they're shocked because they didn't expect to get to where they did. But when they start piecing the pieces together, they go, oh, well, that all makes sense now because they're all interlinked. Yeah.
And the results, like, you know, when you do the case studies, I know you did 3 sessions with one, and I think it was 2 sessions with the other, wasn't it? So I always say 2, sometimes it goes to 3, it doesn't really matter, you know, it's 2 or 3. So when you do, like with the NHS work, you will do 20 sessions with somebody.
Sometimes more.
Yeah. And with IEMT, it's like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And are the results comparable of what you would get out of 2 or 3 of IEMT compared to 20 of?
Probably not, to be fair. I think I'm using some of the stuff from the IEM training is definitely helping people understand why their patterns of thinking are as they are. And they are able to link. Because I can still say, can you remember the first time you felt that way? And they can still access that information, but I can't then actually do any eye movements on it. But we could explore that memory and what it possibly means for the now. But it's a shame because it could be that it actually could go quite much further back, and we could do some work on that in particular.
Oh, absolutely. And what I found as well with you know, sort of mental health workers, you know, such as yourself, nurses and therapists, is that if you're doing 20 sessions and if you're listening to trauma for those 20 sessions, it's not easy on you.
No, you need very good supervision, which I have to admit I do have access to. But yes, you're right. It's
just hearing. And with IEMT, you know,
you don't need to hear any of that. You don't.
So I think it's protecting the therapists, the practitioners, the nurses themselves as well, for not having to expose them and things. A lot of and it's not denying or belittling their information.
No,
it's just to create change work. We don't need the story, we need the structure. Rather than the actual content. And again, a lot of people, and you know, I find working with, especially with men, they don't actually want to talk about.
No, they don't.
Anyway.
They find it hard to share certain information, and sometimes trying to recall the information is quite emotionally triggering. And then you're sat with the emotion in the room for quite some time, and you don't want to leave somebody like that before they leave the appointment. So then it's about working with the emotion in the room and using various different like breathing techniques and grounding techniques and such like. But you do kind of think, if I could just do IMT, I wouldn't have asked that in the first place. We could have just, and then looked at the general sort of patterns of thinking without the content sort of thing, because you'd have already dealt with the memory per se.
It's generally, I find when people leave my sessions, it's kind of a state of bewilderment rather than like, right. I always say, go for a walk. You know, don't do any use any heavy machinery, heavy lifting. Don't use any sort of heavy machinery. Don't go to work if you can't. Just go for a walk and let stuff. And you were saying, actually, it was quite interesting that with one of your people that you worked with, 6 weeks after speaking to them, they still felt it was progressing from the work that you did.
Definitely, yes, for the better. I might just drop him another message actually and ask, you know, it's been quite some time now since how's things going now, because it would be interesting to see how he is doing, to be fair.
Because there's a massive strain on services at the moment, and we haven't felt the full effect of the pandemic on the mental health, and this is why I'm keen to get as many people involved, because it's a 2-day course. Now obviously you will have a background in mental health, but the way that I teach the course as well, you don't need
you don't need it, because you don't need to know about diagnoses, and you don't need to know, you know, what are the symptoms of this particular condition, because you're not going through what the person's feeling right that minute. you want them to just hold on to it. You don't
Yeah.
need them to explain. So you don't need to say, oh, that's anxiety, this is depression, this is this. And I don't always think that labels are helpful anyway.
No.
Even in my job, I think we deal with the symptoms that we've got in front of us rather than always sticking a label on things.
Exactly. And it's like, if I say I'm depressed and if you're depressed, that doesn't mean we both have the same. It's not like if I have this ball and you also have that ball, that's the, you know, it's, you know what I mean? It's a physical thing. When somebody has depression, it's going to be a
very individualized.
Yeah, it's going to be actually, you know, it's a very esoteric experience. It's because of what they've experienced and all this. And I think that, you know, one of the worst things is having Google when you're feeling depressed. And one of my friends is a GP, and he says, you know, he has that sort of, well, it says what I think it's, don't confuse your Google search with my medical degree kind of approach. It's a lot of people.
Yes, Google has its place, but it's not always really helpful.
No,
even in my job, if someone's been given a diagnosis, for example, they go off and do their own research, and you have to question, well, is it peer reviewed? Is it not peer reviewed? And you get into that whole, well, where did you get your information from? Not helpful sometimes. But
I often find that when people have a label, it can do one of two things. It can either be sort of quite a relief because they know it is a thing, or it is now an identity which they then take on.
Yes.
And then that can also be used. An excuse is not the right word, but I can't do that because I have depression, or you know what I mean? I have this. And with IEMT, we're looking at why they're stuck, what these structures are. So basically, we can unstuck them from their problems and basically have better clarity of thought and enjoy their life more. That's all really. You know, it's not a sensational therapy. We're not trying to make people feel better. We're trying to incapacitate their ways of feeling negative so they just feel okay. And once you feel okay, you can actually then do stuff in life rather than sort of
it's looking for them 5 patterns of chronicity, which is something I look out for in my clients too. And identifying, oh, that person's a maybe person, or you know, they're at core, they're effect not cause, and that explains why they are stuck. And again, it's about how can I now explore that with somebody without actually using the eye movement, because I can pick out why they're possibly stuck because of the 5 patterns of chronicity. So it's all helpful. The only thing I can't actually use.
You'll have to be like, okay, just meet me in the car park afterwards. Right? Just, you know.
But yeah, so all of the training is definitely relevant, even if you are in the NHS and you are restricted by the commissioning that your service has. There are still large aspects of the training that you can apply to the work that you do.
And of course, and again, if you wanted, like you mentioned about doing sort of private practice as well, because when you do this training, you can actually get, once I give you your certificate later today, you can actually get your own insurance.
Yes, which is why I want my certificate.
Yes, which I'll be sending to you today. And then you can obviously work.
And you become part of the association.
Yep, you become part of the association.
I know you pay for that, but yes.
Yeah, so when you do the course, so basically when you do IEMT training, you're going to be paying between about £300 and £500, that kind of range. Depends on who the trainer is, what services they're providing, where it is, that kind of stuff. Because I do mine online, but some are in person and stuff. Well, it is now, coming back to it. And then basically the only other charge with IEMT is a £50 a year annual fee. And that's for the association, but then you get they do lots of webinars, there's lots of help, lots of advice, and there's lots of stuff. And, you know, we're all moving this forward now. And there's like, IEMTs are very open. And Sonia's just written her book, which you're saying you're reading, which is really good. And obviously Sonia's got a background in biomedical sciences. So she's given a very complex neurological explanation of everything sort of going on, which is great. I'm reading it going, Jesus, what the,
you need to have your medical dictionary out for a few of the bits.
I've had to
Well, it's still useful.
And this is what I find really interesting. It's like, the way that I explain IEMT, right? I have a phone here, which is an incredible piece of equipment. I can't take that apart and tell you how it works. However, I can use it.
Yeah.
And that's how I find IEMT. IEMT is a set of techniques that work, even if you don't do them particularly well, they still tend to work very well. And so this is why I can take somebody who has no experience working with anybody, no therapy experience or counseling experience, and take them through a weekend course and show them how to use these very robust tools with structures, like literally step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Just
which
this.
is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
Say this, do this, say this, do this, which is what it is.
And then, but once you then get into that, you then begin, it's almost like learning a martial art. That's a kick, that's a punch. But then once you get into it, you were saying that you even, in your case studies, you then use it through like intuition. As the stuff that's coming up.
Because my first demonstration ended up being part of I know it's meant to be a separate sort of memory that doesn't have anything to do with the problem that the person kind of came for. And I mustn't have been particularly clear with that. And the memory was attached. And I just thought, well, I've just got to roll with it because this is what's been brought out. So we'll just go with it and use the patterns that I had to do for the various memories or feelings.
Because after you do the course, so the course is a 2-day course. It's like 9:30 to 5 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. I usually limit it to between 12 to 14 people maximum. Did you feel that you got enough time with myself or your questions answered? So
because you also stayed online an extra half an hour or so after 5 o'clock to answer any questions that hadn't been able to be kind of asked throughout the day.
I always stay on. I always stay on later on as well. And then I'm always in obviously the Facebook group and sending out emails and stuff.
And you're very responsive to emails and messages and such like. So
absolutely. And then you obviously got your aftercare package of stuff and all the templates and all the
videos from the actual day.
Exactly as well. So I do record it as well. So you get the video. So then you can basically just go back and watch all the demonstrations and the techniques as well. So cool. Thank you very much for spending your last half an hour or so with me. Let me just ask, what are you looking forward to going and using IEMT for now? Now you've got your qualification, you can go get certified. What is it? Is it any particular type of client, any particular type of thing you want?
I haven't really thought about a particular client group per se, I guess. I just want to help people. That's why I became a mental health nurse. So I guess over time I will find a niche that I'm particularly good with, and that they will be the particular clients that I will seek, so to speak. I just want to help people with that, and if I can do that by spending 2 hours with them, because that's or slightly longer, 2 to 3 hours with somebody to help them understand why they've been stuck the way they have, and it allows them then to move forward. That's the best thing anybody can ever do, really.
Absolutely. And you know what, I've spoken to a lot of people, especially over the last week or so, and say a couple of things that they've said about learning IEMT. For people who have been in mental health or therapy for a while, this has really excited them again to work with people, because they get to use all these really cool new tools and techniques without having to go into the whole story of everything. And also that says it's really helped their confidence as a practitioner, because they have these set of tools that they know it works with most of the people most of the time. And so it's elevated their own confidence.
And you're not promising anything. There is no promise at the end of it. Like you've said a few times, it's an exploration of how you've gotten to where you are now. And if you can understand that, then that can allow you to become unstuck and sort of move on with what it is you want to achieve. So
that's it. So to all the people that are watching this at home thinking, should I do this for a weekend? What do you have to say to these people who are on the fence?
Even if you don't want to be a practitioner, do it, because you'll find that you can, in your experience where you do practicing, I think it'll probably change your mind, to be fair, because you find the change out for yourself and you go, wow, this is amazing. So even if you don't want to be a practitioner, though, do it for yourself. So it might just unstuck yourself.
Absolutely, because we do an awful lot of techniques. Well, you do all of the techniques.
You do them all,
And so everything we do on the Saturdays, what I do in session 1, everything we do on the Sundays, what I do in session 2. and you get to practice an awful lot. And then what I really like as well is the community around IEMT. So people do practice sessions and skill shares and everything like that afterwards as well.
Yeah, because I think we've got a WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
It hasn't been very active recently, and I'm still in contact with Louise, who I did the course with as well, which is fantastic. So
I'm going to actually be setting up a monthly Q&A/practice session. That's on my to-do list now. I'm over
on your Facebook page.
It's not.
Did you advertise it yesterday? Oh, I thought
I
you
haven't put it
advertised.
on yet now. What I'm actually doing is I'm completely rebuilding the whole IEMT Practitioner Training website and making it all online. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes at the moment. And I'm going to be having some regular events. I'm going to be having obviously the regular trainings, the regular introduction to events, and also the regular Q&A for the practice, for the people who've been to the course. Basically a monthly Q&A and practice session. And that's just for my practitioners or my people who've been through the course.
Super. And then Sonia has her tea parties, doesn't she?
And Sonia has her tea parties as well. So you can check out Sonia Richards. You can just Google her, you'll be able to find her. And she does the IEMT parties. So Sarah, thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend and now take your certificate and go and change people's lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.